ठीक है. Today's topic is transplant and cancer immunology. What is transplant? It is transplanting cell, tissue or organs which were non-functional into from one side to another. Like you are replacing these tissues or organs into the person from another person or from the person from another side. Okay, so individual from whom this transplant is taken is known as donor. An individual whom this transplant is given or in whom this is transplanted, it is known as recipient. This much everyone knows, right? Donor and recipient. What is the classification of transplants? Based on what? Based on the anatomical site. When you are transplanting this tissue on the normal site of anatomy where it actually occurs in the human body, this is orthotopic transplant. For example, you are taking a skin graft from somewhere and transplanting into the skin area somewhere else, right? That is orthotopic transplant. Heterotopic means installing it into the abnormal site. For example, thyroid tissue. What is the location for thyroid tissue? Neck, okay. But you are transplanting it into the subcutaneous pocket anywhere else in the body. Okay, that is heterotopic transplant. Then there are some vital grafts. What are these vital grafts? These are the organs as a whole, kidney, heart. Okay, they are also considered as live grafts. These are vital grafts. But when you are taking out some structure like bone or artery from some place and installing it somewhere, that is a static graft. Okay. So we saw orthotopic graft, heterotopic, vital and static. Okay. But most important classification of this. What is this? Autograft. Autograft means from one part of the body side to another in the same individual. Same person from one part to another part. Okay, that is autograft. For example, healthy skin to the burned area. Somebody has a burn injury and you took up the skin part from somewhere and grafted it on that area so that the skin heals properly. That is autograft. Or taking healthy vessel from the person and replacing it in coronary artery cases. Okay, in blockage of coronary arteries. This is autograft. What is isograft or synogenic graft? These are the synonyms. You have to remember these synonyms. Isogenic or synogenic. They relate to whom? Genetically identical individuals. So whenever you are seeing this, always remember monozygotic twins are considered genetically identical. Why? Because almost 100% of their genes are similar. Okay, that's why they are considered an isograft. But here if you see dizygotic twins, what does that mean? They will not fall under this category. They will not fall under isograft because there might be a variation in their genetic makeup. So you have to say that isograft is considered in the identical individuals, monozygotic twins. When you see dizygotic twins, what will you say? It's an allograft because two same species but different individuals. Okay, species is same. For example, one person is giving kidney to the another person. That is allograft. Okay. Then xenograft. Xeno means different. So here species are different. For example, you are taking up a heart valve from pig, or you are taking heart valve from baboon and installing it into the man. That is xenograft. This much is understood? The four important grafts: autograft, iso or synogenic graft, allograft and xenograft. What are histocompatibility antigens? HLAs. HLAs are the genes that code for proteins that are presented on the cell surface for T cells to recognize them. Okay. So these HLAs they are continuously processing in your body, right? So that's how your immune system is able to recognize what is self and non-self. For example, if tumor is there, So if that tumor is formed, it will not have this normal HLA component of your makeup, if your HLA is in your body. So that will be able to recognize this presentation to attack them through T cells. So if this is different, it might lead to the rejection of the graft, right? So this kind of rejection is seen in what cases? This kind of rejection is seen in allograft and xenograft, because here we are talking about the genetic makeup is almost similar, because autograft is taking a graft from the self and installing it in the self, right? And isografts, it means two identical twins are there whose genetical makeup is almost similar. So here they are histocompatible. But in case of allografts and xenografts, they are inhistocompatible. So see, histo-incompatible. So these grafts are generally rejected by the recipient. These grafts are very difficult to install. Okay. What are the transplantation antigens? We just talked about these molecules, and you know about ABO and RH blood grouping, right? You have studied this. What are the types of graft rejection? There are three types of graft rejection. What are they? Hyperacute, acute and chronic. Hyperacute will take place within minutes, right? Within minutes it will show you. This will take place within weeks, and this will take a little longer time. How does it happen? This hyperacute rejection is mediated by the preformed antibodies, the antibodies that are already circulating in your system. How are they circulating before transplantation? Because there is a chance that this person had undergone blood transfusion. So that's how we acquired these antibodies. There was a chance that there was a previous transplant in this person, or there was a pregnancy. For example, a rhesus negative mother has given birth to the rhesus positive child. What will happen? The antibodies will, during the birthing process, they will go into this mother. So these are the preformed antibodies that will remain, and hyperacute rejection will be there. So since there are preformed antibodies, this graft gets rejected more vigorously earlier. So you can see that this is taking place in minutes. But this is not a very common problem. You can avoid it by matching the donor and the recipient through histocompatibility and through ABO blood grouping and RH blood grouping. Okay. Okay, what about the acute graft rejection? This occurs within days or weeks after transplantation. It is mediated by T cells, cytotoxic T cells and helper T cells. You know what is the end effect of these two things? Cytotoxic will lead to the cytolysis, T cell, this delayed hypersensitivity. This will be through DTH cells. Okay, what else? Coming to chronic graft rejection, it will occur over months or years. So we were talking about DTH. This you can see in the form of fibrosis. Fibrosis or atherosclerosis in the grafted tissue area, the narrowing of blood vessels and consequently leading to the necrosis. This is the comparison. You just have to remember this much, that hyperacute takes place within minutes to hours. It takes place through the preformed antibodies, right? In acute rejection, it takes place within weeks to months. And what are the mechanisms involved? Cytotoxic T cell and antibodies. And in chronic rejection, it takes place within months to years, and chronic DTH is involved. Both are involving antibody mediation, because ultimately this is stimulating plasma cells to release antibodies, right? This is the classification that you have to remember. This, after you have performed an allograft transplant, it will take place in three modes. First, we'll discuss how the normal thing occurs. Like this, you have implanted an autograft. It undergoes revascularization in 3 to 7 days, and about 10 to 12 days you will see the complete healing. But in case of rejection, what will happen? You will see that after revascularization, there is cellular infiltration in case of first rejection, and by 10 to 12 days, about 2 weeks, you will see that there is thrombosis and necrosis, damaging of blood vessels. So, necrosis is apparent in about 10 to 14 days. But in second set of rejection, when you are installing the graft again, second set of rejection will happen when very fast, in accelerated fashion it will happen. So, this necrosis will be visible within a week. In first set of rejection, it will taking place in 2 weeks. Here it is taking place in 1 week. There are mechanisms that are involved in graft rejection. This you have to understand. See, you can see here the APC. This is also an APC. We are talking about two kind of presentations, direct and indirect. So what is happening here? This is donor's APC, right? What do you mean by donor's APC? APC from the tissue which was a transplant, which you were transplanting into the person. So this APC is from donor, not from the recipient. And this donor's APC, it's itself taking up degrading this APC is taking up these antigens, degrading and presenting it to the T cells of recipient. This is direct presentation. Okay, subsequently what will happen? T cell will get activated. There are three ways that it will act. This DTH, T cell cytolysis and B cells, antibody formation. So here you can see this is donor's APC, this is direct presentation. In case of indirect presentation, recipient's APC is going and performing all these sequences are after recipient's APC is presenting this to T cell. Okay. So in direct presentation, donor's APC is involved, and in indirect presentation, recipient's APC is involved. Okay. How will you prevent this graft rejection? Through ABLO typing and HLA typing. HLA typing can be done through genetics or phenotypic methods or DNA sequencing, etc. Okay. And we can also perform immunosuppressive therapy. In case of hyperacute rejection, since it is visible within minutes, the wise thing to do is to remove the graft to prevent the subsequent harm. And in case of chronic rejection, you can think of other treatment modalities such as immunosuppression through cyclosporins. These are certain drugs that are involved in the immunosuppressive therapies. Coming to graft versus host reaction. Till now we were studying that how the recipient was not allowing the graft to be transplanted. Here the graft is rejecting the recipient. How can a graft reject a recipient? Because recipient is immunosuppressed. It does not have enough immune response to fight with the graft. So for that, this graft must contain immunocompetent T cells, right? And recipient should be immunologically suppressed, and therefore it cannot mount an immune response on the graft. There are two types of graft versus host reaction. Acute reaction takes place within 3 months, and chronic GVS takes place with more than 100 days, with more than 3 months. Coming to, these are all the important headings and the important things that you will have to remember till now, whatever I have taught you. Coming to cancer immunology. In cancer immunology, we are studying antigens or tumor cells and how they are presenting these antigens so that you can help with the diagnosis and treatment, right? So there are two types of tumor antigens that are presented by the tumors. What are the two types? Tumor specific and tumor associated. When you say tumor specific means only tumor cells are able to produce this. Normal cells cannot, okay? But in case of tumor associated, normal cells can produce them in small quantity. But when there is a tumor in the body, the production is exaggerated, and that's how you use them for diagnostic markers for certain carcinomas, right? You might have heard about prostate carcinogen and prostate antigen, PSA. Have you heard of it? Okay, so I told you tumor specific antigens are present only on the tumor cells and absent in the normal cells of the body. They may result from mutation in the tumor cells that generate altered cellular proteins. This much you know. Okay. This cytosolic processing of class 1 MHC molecules and all, for that you need to know the MHC molecules, how they are involved, what are the types of MHC molecules, all that you have studied before. What are THTAs? They are induced on tumor cells either by chemical, physical or viral carcinogens. So you can see in case of certain viruses, there are similar kind of lesions that are produced by these typical cancer causative agents, right? Viruses. For example, EBVs, Epstein-Barr virus, right? So they can be either induced by chemical, physical or viral antigens. And then tumor associated transplants, transplantation antigens, they are also expressed by the normal cells but at very low level, but their levels get exponentially high in during cancers. What are these? These are, you can classify them as oncofetal antigens or non-oncofetal antigens. These oncofetal antigens are expressed on the normal cells during fetal life, but during adult life they do not express this. So as they are present during fetal life, they undergo reactivation of these embryogenic genes and then release of these antigens because of tumor. Some examples are alpha fetoprotein and CEA. Where do you see this alpha fetoprotein and CEA? You see this in hepatoma or testicular cancer. Alpha fetoprotein or in hepatoma or testicular cancer. CEA, you can see it's a very important marker, usually asked in the exam. CEA, gastrointestinal cancers, lung or ovarian cancers. Here you can see carcinoembryogenic antigen. Then CA 125 for ovarian cancer, CA 1909 for carcinomas. What are these various carcinomas? You have to know. Could be colon cancers. Okay. And I was talking about prostate specific antigen. You can see that in prostate cancer. Immune response against the tumor cell takes place through antibodies and cell mediated immunity. So you can use either this immune response or preformed antibodies, monoclonal antibodies, right, or immunosuppressant drugs. So what will you involve in this? Cytotoxic T cells or NK cells, in which you are taking up in cell based. See, there are three kinds of therapies that you can use to treat cancers, that are cell based therapies, antibody therapies or cytokine therapies. So in cell based therapies, you are taking these immune cells from the patient with cancer and they are activated, grown and returned to the person with cancer. So this is in vitro process, and the immune cells provoke immune response against the cancer. This is cell response. Monoclonal antibodies, you know what is monoclonal antibodies? It was taught in the previous lectures. See this, rituximab CD20, approved for the treatment of CLL. Should know at least this much. These are all the examples and these are all the targets. They are approved for which kind of cancers. But if you don't know what is monoclonal antibody, then how will you understand? There will be a separate lecture on monoclonal antibodies. Coming to cytokine therapies. Cytokines at least we know, right? Interferon alpha, that is used in the treatment of hairy cell leukemia. Interleukin 2, it is used in the treatment of malignant melanoma and renal cell carcinoma. This is about the therapies that we use for the cancer treatment. And you can use the cancer vaccines for prophylaxis and for the treatment. There's, you know about HPV and hepatitis B vaccine. Hepatitis B vaccine is given at the birth. Some therapeutic cancer vaccines, the research is ongoing that we can use them to treat existing cancers. But right now we are using this and it is very much effective. What is immunoprophylaxis? One word, what do you understand by immunoprophylaxis? What comes to your mind when you think of immunoprophylaxis? Do you think of vaccines when I'm talking about immunoprophylaxis? We're going to talk about vaccines, right? Immunoprophylaxis against the microbial pathogens. It's classified into active and passive immunoprophylaxis. In passive, you're using immunoglobulins, preformed immunoglobulins. In active immunoprophylaxis, you are using vaccines, vaccination strategies. You are giving antigens to the human body and they are producing immunity to this particular positive agent, right? So, vaccines, they provide specific protection following immunogen, administration of immunogen which stimulates the immune system, right? They produce active immunity in the form of protective antibody or immunocompetent T cells. There are two kinds of vaccines. One is monovalent, polyvalent. Monovalent means single serotype. Polyvalent means, any good example of polyvalent vaccine? Pneumococcal vaccine, right? Then there are homologous vaccines. They are derived from the same microorganism. Heterologous vaccine might involve another organism but used for the prophylaxis of different organism. For example, BCG vaccine, you are taking the Mycobacterium bovis strain, but it is used against what? MTB. This BCG vaccine is derived from M. bovis, but you are using it for treatment for prophylaxis of MTB. That is heterologous vaccine. Coming to the types of vaccines. What are the types of vaccines? These are all the type of vaccine. Live attenuated, inactivated or killed, extracted or cellular fraction, toxoids, subunit, DNA vaccines or edible vaccines. What do you understand by this? Is it possible for you to provide a live microorganism in the form of vaccine to the person? Will the person survive? No. So what are you doing here? You are weakening this organism by passing it through certain host, right? Or culturing it into the laboratory. What are you doing? You are attenuating the organism's virality. So they do not cause the full-blown disease that they are capable of causing, but they retain the immunogenicity and provide you immunity. Okay, this is live attenuated vaccine. What are the examples? BCG, typhoidal epidemic typhus vaccine in bacteria, and for viruses, all these vaccines, they are all live attenuated vaccines. You know about MMR, measles, mumps, rubella, you know about chickenpox, you know about influenza vaccines, you know about OPV, rotavirus you have studied recently, yellow fever, hepatitis A you have studied recently. All these are live attenuated vaccines. Smallpox was the only vaccine which was not attenuated, right? What were you using here? You were using your cowpox virus and injecting it into the people, and this was providing immunity against smallpox. Rest all live vaccines are attenuated. What is the advantage over all other vaccines? Here the advantage is that when you inject a live organism, it multiplies within the host cell. So immunogenic response will be more, the antigenic dose will be more, and it will also induce the mucosal immunity. Mucosal immunity is given by which immunoglobulin? Immunoglobulin A. Immunoglobulin A is also known as secretory antibody, right? So this is secretory IgA antibody production will also take place through live attenuated. This is the advantage. So by this, do we mean that they provide lifelong immunity? Yes, because antigenic dose is larger. But there are certain contraindications. What are the contraindications? You cannot give this to the immunosuppressant peoples. No two live vaccine should be given within the time period of 3 weeks. That is the indication, okay? And should not give to the immunosuppressed people or in pregnancy. Rest all are given in the single dose except OPV pulse polio drops you have known, right? They are given in multiple doses. Rest all are given in single doses. What are inactivated or killed vaccine? Inactivated or killed vaccine are grown in culture under controlled conditions and killed using heat or formaldehyde. So you are killing this organism. For that you need adjuvants also. Adjuvants will only enhance the way this vaccine works. It is safer but less efficacious than the live vaccine. And here you have to give multiple doses to the people. What are the examples? In bacteria, there are typhoid, cholera, pertussis, plague. All these vaccines are inactivated or killed vaccine, and in virus there is IPV, injectable polio vaccine, rabies vaccine, hepatitis A was there in live vaccines as well, and in the inactivated vaccine as well, and Japanese encephalitis. This we have already seen. What are the toxoid vaccines? They are basically the exotoxins derived from bacteria, and you treat them with acid formalin for prolonged stage. This toxoid is used in the treatment of what? They used to neutralize. What do you neutralize with this? Neutralize the toxin moiety. How? They'll produce the neutralizing antibodies. Most commonly what you are using? Tetanus toxoid. Everybody has taken it, right? And diphtheria toxoid. These are the common examples for toxoids. Some cellular fraction vaccines are available, such as meningococcal vaccine, pneumococcal, where you are extracting certain fractions from the microorganism cell. Subunit vaccines. For example, let's say surface antigen is capable of inducing anti-HBs antibody in the person. So what will you give this person? You will only give this immunogenic component, right? So this subviral component alone can act as a vaccine. These are certain combinations you might have heard about: MMR, DPT and pentavalent vaccine. Which of these are given at 6, 10 and 14 weeks in the National Immunization Program? Which of these are given at 6, 10 and 14 weeks? DNA vaccines are at the experimental stage as of now. You should know about something interesting, that is edible vaccine. What is this edible vaccine? Genes encoding with the orally active antigenic protein is transferred to the suitable plant bacteria. What will this plant bacteria will do? This plant bacteria will infect the transgenic plant, and this plant is fed to the humans or animals. So that makes it edible. You are eating this vaccine, right? Through what? Through the plants. How is it made? You are using to incorporate this vaccine into the bacteria that are infecting plants. After these bacteria have infected these plants, you are consuming these plants, right? That is edible vaccine. What are the advantages of edible vaccine? They are low cost, they can be produced at large scale, they are administered orally, they also induce local immunity. What is local immunity? They are heat stable. What is local immunity? If you are giving people this vaccine on a large scale in given area, so in that area the people will become immune, right? One good example, We are using it for Norwalk virus. Coming to how do you maintain the vaccines, right from the manufacturing to the person it is to be given. So something called as cold chain, where you have maintain the system of cold chain from transport, storage, handling of vaccines from manufacture level to the site of administration. Optimum temperature for certain vaccines, they are to be refrigerated between 2 to 8 degrees, and for certain vaccines, frozen vaccines, it's less than 15 degrees or lower. Also, protection from the light is necessary. One good example for this, OPV. You might have seen how OPV is given. It is more sensitive to heat and it is stored at minus 20 degrees. Then there is something called as vaccine vial monitor. You will see this thing on the bottle of the vaccine. This outer circle that you see, it is not heat labile, but inner circle is heat labile, which is white in color when you get this vaccine from the manufacturer. So at 4 stages you can see it. If it is light blue, it means you can use this vaccine, but when it turns dark blue or when it turns equal to the outer shade and or dark blue than the outer shade, it means that this vaccine is not usable. Okay, this is the stability indicator of the vaccine. You guys know immunization program, what vaccines are given at the birth? Abhi, just now I told you one vaccine is given at the birth. At least tell me that much. BCG, OPV and hepatitis B. Okay? Just remember it like this. BCG, OPV and hepatitis B. For 6, 10 and 14 weeks, there is one mnemonic, P-prop. What is this mnemonic? Pentavalent. This P includes DPT, hepatitis B and Haemophilus influenza type B. Then rotavirus and PCV. Is it there? After this comes what? 9 to 12 months. What do you give in that? MR, measles and rubella. Mumps is now taken out from this program. And Japanese encephalitis and vitamin A. Okay? One thing that I missed in 6, 10, 14 weeks was this IPV. Immunoglobulins, you know, passive immunization. We are giving immunoglobulins to whom? To the cases who are exposed. For example, for hepatitis B, we are giving hepatitis B immunoglobulin. Individuals who cannot synthesize their own antibodies, immunocompromised individuals, right? And in case of toxin-mediated diseases. What was toxin-mediated diseases? Will antibiotics work in this toxin-mediated diseases? Okay, this was it.